for everything from medicine and energy to materials and agriculture. In infrastructure, of course, the administration's effort to clear away red tape and facilitate AI construction have been enormously successful. But I'm especially excited about the energy capacity American industry is building, both to power the AI revolution and all the other incredible technologies this new age of discovery will unlock. President Trump and the Department of Energy are committed to accelerating and enhancing the growth of American nuclear power, creating space to experiment, facilitating small modular reactor build-out, and continuing the pursuit of fusion energy. International partnerships and AI diplomacy, we continue to push back against global AI governance at the UN, G7, APEC, and other forums, and to defend great American companies from foreign nations' stifling regulatory regimes. I'm particularly excited about the American AI Export Program. As the Commerce and State Departments roll that out, there will soon be a request for proposals shared with industry and a formal launch of the program in the coming months. Our goal is for U.S. companies to provide modular AI stack packages that empower countries to develop sovereign AI capabilities with American technology. The AI Action Plan is a giant leap forward, furthering first steps President Trump took for American AI dominance in his first term. With the call for this plan in his first week back in office, the President recommitted himself and the country to American AI leadership. The need for renewed effort was clear. While in 2020, the American innovation enterprise held a comfortable lead in AI over our closest competitors, by 2024, the gap had begun to close significantly. But with his golden age vision of scientific rigor and technological progress, President Trump has restored a spirit of confidence to our innovation enterprise. We are approaching AI not with fear, but with responsible boldness. Looking ahead, there is still so much to be done working together. As our innovators continue to find novel applications of AI technology to everyday life, we can ensure they benefit all Americans through small business training, workforce development, and AI education. I'm proud to say that more than 250 companies have signed the First Lady's Pledge to America's Youth, committing hundreds of millions of dollars to investing in AI education. And I just returned from the Consumer Electronics Show, where there is obvious excitement about American AI, but also about what's ahead in quantum information science. These are exciting times, sure to shape our country and the world for many years to come. Thank you all for your leadership.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony. We will now move on to question and answers from the panel, and we'll start with questions from myself. So I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. Director Kratsios, I want to start with the points that Ranking Member Lofgren raised, which I thought were excellent and really pertinent as usual. And in particular, the point about preemption. To be clear, I don't think anyone believes that the states shouldn't have a lane in regulating AI. But I think what everyone believes is that there should be a federal lane and that there should be a state lane, and that the federal government needs to go first in defining what is, under Article 1 of the Constitution, interstate commerce, and where those preemptive guardrails are, where regulation is reserved only for regulation at the federal level, and then outside those guardrails where the states are free to go be the laboratories of democracy that they are. So the President recognized this in his executive order last month. He's calling for Congress to work with the executive branch in defining what those guardrails are. I think there was an explicit acknowledgement in that executive order that congressional action is needed. It's not something that can be done unilaterally. So can you talk a little bit about what the administration's vision for that is and where you think those guardrails ought to be?
Absolutely. The President first spoke about the need for a sensible national policy framework actually in July when we released the AI Action Plan. And in that speech here in Washington, he made it clear that having a set of 50 different laws all across the country is actually not the best thing for American innovation. And as someone who's worked in Silicon Valley and worked with lots of startups and been at startups, I understand the challenge. And I think what is sometimes missed in this conversation is if you have this tremendous patchwork of laws all across the country, the folks who actually are able to work within that system most successfully are the deep-pocketed large big tech companies, the small innovators, the entrepreneurs, the people who want to start new businesses. Forcing them to try to find a way to comply with 50 different sets of AI rules is actually anti-innovation, and it's something that I don't think anyone on this committee actually supports. The president then took another step forward in December of last year, where we laid out an executive order charging me and David Sachs to work to create legislation to help find a path forward for a sensible national policy framework. And that's something that I very much look forward to working with everyone on this committee for. I think what was clear in the executive order specifically was that any proposed legislation should not preempt otherwise lawful state actions relating to child safety protections, AI compute and data infrastructure, and also state government procurement and use of AI. Those are ones that were called out in the executive order, but we look forward over the next weeks and months to be working with Congress on a viable solution.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, this is something that we have been grappling with now for several years. We had a whole chapter on preemption in the AI task force report. I think it was very helpful that the administration is also thinking about this issue and thinking about where those state lanes should be and how they intersect with the federal lanes. So let's keep working on that. I also wanted to, in addition to commending you for the good work of Casey, talk about the need for us in Congress to formally codify it. And you know, the work it does in doing AI model evaluation is essential in creating what's a toolbox, a regulatory toolbox for our sectoral regulators, so everyone doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. But you know, we've had this in successive administrations now. Under the Biden administration, we had the AI Safety Institute. The Trump administration, we have Casey. There are many of the same functions that are performed by those organizations, but I think everyone would agree it's unhealthy for us to have every successive administration spin up a brand new agency that essentially is doing something with a long-term mission that needs continuity. So can you talk about whether or not you think we in Congress need to go ahead and codify this as part of implementing our national strategy on AI?
I think Casey, as was kind of discussed previously, I think is a very important part of the larger AI agenda. I think one of the important and big steps that the administration took at the beginning of middle of last year was to reframe what was previously a safety institute into one that is focused on standards and innovation. And I think from my perspective, the most important thing that can be done around Casey at NIST is to focus on what NIST is really good at. And what Mrs. Stevens was talking about. It's absolutely important that the legacy work around standards relating to AI are undertaken by Casey, and that's what they're challenged to do. And that's the focus that they should have, because the great standards that are put out by Casey and by NIST are the ones that ultimately will empower the proliferation of this technology across many industries.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony. I'm looking forward to hearing the questions from our other subcommittee members.